Alrighty, folks. Hello. Welcome back to Adobe Live. Let me pop over here and let y'all see me. It is so good to be back for another day of the Illustration Bootcamp. My name is Voodoo Val, and I'm going to be your host this morning, diving back into our spooky gator illustration. I'm super excited, and I had so much fun yesterday. If you did not catch yesterday's bootcamp, basically what we did was kind of concept out a project, thumbnail, a little scene which we will be painting today and prepping for illustration animation tomorrow, and I think it's gonna be super fun. Ooh, yes. Let me know if everybody can hear me. Great. I just want to make sure all of that stuff is in order. General Kenobi is in chat this morning. Red 5 standing by. Gold Leader standing by. Hello there. Llama Mama is here. Can't wait. Same. I'm super pumped. Let me make sure I've got everything together. Saying hello to everybody. Let's pop over and kind of see what we did yesterday and get a look at our project so far. So this is what we have at the moment. So yesterday we did a few different thumbnails. Also, I have touch shortcuts on today. I don't think I had touch shortcuts on yesterday, so now hopefully you folks can get a better idea of where I'm clicking and tapping and things. But we created a little thumbnail. We created 3 actually, and we designed a little scene of our gator character kind of in the swamp among these rocks and things. We added another character. Stan has entered the chat, and we kind of solidified more of an idea of what our rocks and things could possibly look like for this design. And then on Instagram, everybody came in and voted, which was really cool. On our color palette. So we had a choice between warm tones and cool tones has won. So I've recolored our gator character in the cool tones, and I've kind of laid out all of the colors and things that we're using. And if you folks would like to create along with me or get your hands on the sketches and concepts and the color palette and the illustration of our little guy here, you can either click the link which our mods are putting in the chat and get a hold of all this stuff, or you can check the description below, especially if you are watching this in the future and we are not live when you are viewing this. The starter files and all that good stuff are just going to be in the description if you follow that link. So we're going to dive into it. Today we're going to be focusing a lot on kind of bringing all of this messiness into kind of a more finalized stage, closely related to this kind of final illustration here. And I've got some brushes that I really love to use for this, but we are going to be using a mix of pixel brushes and vector brushes, which I will tell you a little bit about here in a moment. And we are also going to be maybe experimenting a little bit with some of the live brushes for our background and all that good stuff, while kind of going over some best practices for prepping the Fresco files for animation, organizing all of our layers, and also some tips and tricks if you are doing a project like this but you are working on a team. So just nice things to do when you're working with other people who will have to navigate your files. So let's go ahead. I am going to kind of come into my folder here, my group. And I am going to, let's go ahead and duplicate our gator, and I'm going to hide the big version of him, and then I'm going to take this duplication and I'm going to transform it, and I'm just going to push him up here into the corner just so I can keep my eye on him, okay? And then I'm going to come over to my colors, and I'm going to kind of rearrange my workspace here so I can really keep an eye on things. We can come over here into our other group, and I might kind of shrink down our thumbnail just so that I can stay looking at it and stay informed on what the plan is, but kind of have room in my canvas here to really navigate. And we're going to make our illustration here just a little bit bigger. Now, I did have plans for our illustration vibe yesterday. And I'm going to kind of go over those just a little bit. I'm going to take our thumbnail, and I'm just like doing a press and hold here and then dragging it up to the arrow. And then I'm going to come over and hover over this. Oops, I let go a little too soon or a little too late. And I'm just going to drag it into our group of other assets here. So that it's all in here, because what I want to be able to do is, as I'm painting and doing everything that we're doing here, I want to be able, honestly, to hide the peripherals if I decide I don't want to look at them at that moment, which is kind of what I want to do now, because I'm going to do a little sketching, and I'll turn it on again when we come back to our colors. So let's go ahead and hide that. Let's come into our group, and I do have a group just with one image here, but that's kind of strategic, because what I'd like to do is have the sketches and the final illustration sort of contained in its own group for now. So let's come back in here, and yesterday when I went over like really what I wanted for this illustration, I decided that truly, if I come over here and grab a brush, I'm going to go into my favorites, because I have a lot of brushes saved in my favorites, and I'm going to come in and grab this classic felt tip, which I believe is a True Grit Texture Co. brush. I like it because it is, doesn't have the opacity, pen pressure on, and it's got a little bit of texture while also being quite a precise brush if I decide that I want to be very precise with what I'm doing. But I'd like to have, if we make this just a tiny bit smaller, I would like to have this illustration kind of blend into the background. So we've got water here. This is going to be a lot of water and like ripples and things here for this illustration with all the rocks, and we'll have our character kind of centralized right in here. And I want this water to be the same color as our background. So we're not just like leaving something smack dab in the middle of our canvas, but kind of utilizing the space without kind of pushing everything so far to the border that it starts to feel a little cramped. You know what I mean? It kind of lets the illustration breathe in a really nice way, so that's what we're going to go for. I would like to have our title right up here, like a little title of kind of what we're doing. And then down at the bottom, I would like to have my Instagram handle, because this is kind of a nice thing to do, especially if you're going to be posting a piece like this on social media. And I think that there are a lot of, for me personally, there's a lot of accounts that might say, oh wow, that's a cool piece of art, and then they'll add it to their account. And so having my Instagram tag is a nice way just to make sure everybody knows that I am the artist, but also I think that the lockup of it is quite attractive. So we're going to do that. And what I will do is I will come over to my layer properties and turn this down to our lower opacity, create a new layer for myself, and go ahead and hide those. And I'm just going to start kind of sketching out and really bringing this to life. We can actually go ahead now and turn our other layers back on, just so that I can see my creature, see my thumbnail, and see my color palette as I start to make this a little more significant, kind of build it out. This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them. Yes, indeed, General Kenobi. Cool tones. Yes, indeed. Elizabeth Ma, welcome in. Josie, welcome in. It's good to see you. Christy Lee, I see you in there. Robert RB, it's good to have all of you folks with us today. I'm so glad you came to hang out. Odari, welcome in. It's good to see you, my friend. And Anki as well. Welcome in. So I am going to come in and kind of add our character in here. And I think, let's see, what I'd like to do, because we are going to be working a lot with shapes, I am going to do a quick sketch layer just to solidify this a little bit more. And I'm going to be kind of loose with it. I'm just kind of drawing in these lines for where we want some things. I want to make sure that I'm really playing into this texture idea, that this is like rock or stone. Give it kind of an organic vibe. Kind of like that. I like it. Put like some directional lines here, and kind of bring this idea that the moss and stuff kind of growing around on this on this tall stone is very, like, almost placed to one side on it. And I want to also, as we get into the illustration, I kind of have this plan that the bottom color will kind of blend in with the water ripples a little bit. So that sort of thing could be really fun. And I'm also paying attention here to the formations. So we have one rock here that has like 3 main formations here, here, and here. And so I don't really want to repeat that. I want to repeat at least 3 main rock formations, but I don't want them to look so similar that it starts to look a little less dynamic. I think it's always a great rule of thumb as you kind of get into illustration when you're doing some kind of environment or landscape, repeating main design elements in groups of 3 is always a really great and dynamic way to kind of elaborate on your space, but you want to make sure that those design elements are not so identical as to be repetitive and boring. You know, sometimes the more you add to something, the more boring it can become, if that makes sense. And so I do have, like, this formation kind of comes in, and this one is, you know, just 1. You know, so I have another formation here, but it's only got 1 main, like, kind of rock hump there. And then this one is much smaller, but this one's gonna have 2. And I think that, you know, really looks quite good, quite dynamic with the rest of our piece. So we're just gonna kind of put that in there. Boom. And we'll do our little mossy line. And we could even do that right there. Let's do like a little line or 2 here. Boom. So then that one has 2. So it's like, let me go ahead and remove this real quick. A quick tip, and I don't know if everybody does this or not in their Fresco, but whenever I need to erase stuff, I don't, especially if it's like a large area or like a whole element I want to remove, I don't ever use the eraser to erase it because I always leave back small artifacts and things which can be really difficult. Especially if you're working a project like this where we are going to be animating, and just because certain artifacts left behind from the eraser are not obvious right when you do it, once you get into the animation, I think, and stuff starts moving around, you can start to see those little tidbits left behind. So to make sure I get a nice clean erase, I like to select it with my lasso tool. And then just hit erase down at the bottom in the tool tips that come up when you select something, and then deselect, because then I know that whole area is very clean. I'm also going to come in with my lasso because I don't think that this little 3rd rock formation is right side up enough, so I'm just going to kind of turn that down a little bit. Another thing that we can do as well, and this is something that I employ often, just to kind of make sure that everything I am doing is aligned, even if I'm kind of illustrating with organic shapes, is I like to, let's make a new layer real quick. I like to come over and select like a bright red color, and then I grab the ruler, and I'll come in and just kind of draw some lines. Oops, let's make sure I'm on my brush. I like to come in and just draw some lines and see, like, really just how straight everything is. Like, this one's really not that bad, because I freehanded all these lines, which sometimes I make it, and sometimes I really don't make it. So this one might need to be changed just slightly. This one might be okay, although I might have tilted it a little too much. And I'm not gonna have like perfectly straight lines through here, but I do like to come in and just kind of check how straight what I'm working on actually is, and then hide it, and then I can kind of take a look at what I got. So this one here, the largest one, not so bad. Something that you can do if you do not want to alter things totally and completely, you just want to nudge something instead of redrawing it, is you can come into the transform tools. You can do skew. So if I want to skew and kind of bring, because I think that They're all, because I'm right-handed, they're all kind of skewed to the same direction. So that kind of works. That straightened them all out actually really well. And I like that. That's good enough. But if you really want to do a lot of alteration to your sketch, you can always come in and do liquify, because we have liquify in Fresco now, which is amazing. So I can come into liquify and I can change my brush shape. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. Reconstruct, smooth, twirl, pucker, bloat, push left or right. But the warp really is near and dear to my heart, and I can just come in and kind of push things around if I want to. In fact, what I would probably do is use a much larger brush here, so that I could grab a hold of like a whole element like that, you know, and move, like maybe I want to move this side back, but I don't want to alter the changes that I made to that other side. I can really get a lot of control with this. So if I hit done, and I'll go ahead and hide my lines. Now I know that all of these are really quite straight and will work well for my piece, and I'm satisfied with that. Hello, Yassine, welcome in. Yes, no spamming in the chat. We want to keep everything clear so that if anyone has any questions about the art process or the applications that I'm using, everyone's questions can be seen and heard. Is that Sean? Is Sean in here? Hello, Sean. It's good to see you. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Artex, welcome in. It's good to have you with us. Thanks for joining. I'm going to peek at our... Oh, we have got so much time. We've got so much time. We've got like a good 40 minutes left. This is great. Okay, so we've got our rock formations pretty solid. I like this, but we really need to start thinking about putting our gator into the mix here, right? And one of the things I think I will do is I'm going to go ahead and come over here and duplicate that hidden gator that we have, and I'm just going to take this and bring it over into our other group, and I'll unhide him, and I'm just gonna kind of use this head to kind of position and really get a good idea of what he's gonna look like, because we want to have him kind of centered in here, like he belongs with the rest of the vibe. And there's a lot of things to think about when you do something like this. So I could just put him, like maybe I want him this big and I can put him smack in the middle here, but we really don't want to create a bunch of tangents. Tangents is something really to look out for. I remember when I first started, you know, trying to create pieces and things, the idea or the concept of tangents was something that was very foreign to me, but this is a tangent here. Let me go ahead and come in with my red brush. This is a tangent right there. So the very edge of his nose is smack dab touching the very edge of our rock here, and that's really not what we want. We want a very dynamic overlap so that it's pleasing to the eye, and also because we're going to be animating a lot of stuff, like we'll animate him moving up and down. We don't want him just rubbing his nose against the side of this rock, because if we draw the rest of his body and put him in here, you know, and he's just kind of chilling in the water over here, this is gonna look like he's right on par with this rock, when in reality what I want to do is have these two rocks behind him, okay, and then this one is the only one that is in the foreground. We want him to be right in the mid-ground there, so that he's like kind of sitting in the center, chilling in the center of all of these rocks, you know? And so that tangent does more than look odd with our composition. It also ruins the distance and depth that I'm trying to create with this piece. So something that would be much, much better to do is, if we go back a little bit and let's go ahead and transform this again, is to make him a little bit larger and have him obviously kind of overlap with that back one, and then have him partially overlapping with this one here, and make sure that we're not creating another tangent with like the edge of where we want that moss to be. Something like this would be really, really great. And then if we come in and start building out the rest of his body, the ripples will probably go something, you know, like this. And his body will come down here. And this is really great too, because not only do the ripples come around, but placing him here and having these ripples hide behind, kind of disappear behind this rock, also really does work wonders to create this idea that he is in the center there. So when we start to build our shapes out and things and like kind of add the rest of him and really get it going, we can do a lot to create that sense of depth, not only overlapping with these elements here, but also putting our character behind this one there and creating this whole rounded little space. So that's the plan here that we're gonna do. And I'm gonna go ahead actually and leave that the sketch here. What I may do, however, just so that it's not so, you know, kind of glaring, is I may turn this to like lock the transparency for that layer, and then make my brush much larger and grab my black here, and I'm just going to paint in to make that the lines black so it's not so crazy. And the, just, you know, as a quick tip, the lock transparency is really great because if you do a lot of sketching or you work with line art like I do sometimes, being able to lock the transparency makes it so that anything that you add to that layer after the transparency is locked is only applied to the pixels that are already present. So you're not going to be drawing outside of the lines or anything, which is something we may actually use today as we get into the illustration process. With tangents, you went with the swamp. Yes, yes. Let me peek over here. Crocagator. Yes, the crocagator. See, Sean, no tangents. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Yes, I am working on it. Make sure there's no tangents whatsoever. Also, Wade is dropping the link to the files in the chat if you would like access to our little gator friend here, the color palette, which you can see up here, and all of my sketches. You can get them either in the form of a PSD, which you could open and save to your CC libraries and then either work in Photoshop or open up in Fresco. But there's also a PNG file of all of those images combined, so that if you want to just download that and bring the sketch PNG directly into your Fresco and work with me, you are more than welcome to do so as well. All right, so we've got our sketch. We kind of got, you know, really what we're looking to do here. What I might add is I'm gonna go ahead and unlock the transparency now that it's black so that I can just start working on, oops, too big. So I can start like kind of sketching directly on this layer and everything matches. And I just want to put myself some more water lines and things just so that I remember that I definitely want to kind of interconnect all of these ripples and get that going. And it is sketchy. It is a little wild and crazy, but really these sketches are for me and my brain, and kind of keeping my eye on the goal of the project. So all those ripples kind of come in. We could even have them spread out. We could also add in like some little lily pads, which could be cool. Lily pads might be neat just to kind of add some more things to the water area. That could be neat. And it could also, you know, having larger lily pads up here at the front, doing something like this could be really, really great when it comes to adding depth, because I can add tiny lily pads back here, and that's really going to tell the viewer that, okay, the rocks are definitely overlapping with our character, but you can really see the distance and scale if I add lily pads in the foreground receding back to the background, which is something that is pretty fun. All right, so we've got that. We definitely want to keep Stan in there because Stan is Stan's the man, you know. Stan's our guy, and he definitely needs to be included. So Stan is here to stay. I can confirm that Stan will not be going anywhere. He is a part of the family now, and we can't kick him out, honestly. So let's go ahead and just make sure Stan is sketched in there. We'll put his little legs. I feel like he needs a little hairdo. definitely. So Stan's got his hairdo. Stan's looking great. And we're going to get into rendering all of this stuff, like really putting some detail on it. So I've got all of this, and I'm going to just turn this whole layer down on a lower opacity, this whole group. You know, so we've got more substance to this. I also believe that I am going to bump this up just a little bit because I think I want our illustration a little more in the center. And now we're going to start building out some great shapes. Now you can do this a lot of ways. I think that I'm going to use a combination of two different approaches here, and that is I'm going to come into my selection tools, grab my rectangle, and I'm going to start throwing rectangles out onto the canvas. And my reasoning for this is that I want to make sure I keep this as straight as possible. So I'm just adding some rectangles for now, which we will then alter and edit to give it a little more personality as we progress. So there we go. We've got like some little rectangles. So the main portion of each of these formations is straight up and down, and then we're going to paint bucket some color in, but we're going to paint bucket in with vector. And the reason why is because something that I mentioned a little bit of yesterday is when you paint bucket in with the pixel brush or the pixel fill type. Let me go ahead and add vector. That's fine. It you know, serves the exact same purpose as before, but you get something like this. So let me come over here, and I'm just gonna grab here, and I'm gonna make us like a little tiny square. Say I'm paint bucketing in just a tiny little area, and we're gonna paint bucket that with pixel. Okay, that's fine. Nice clean shape, right? But say I want this square to be much larger, and then I decide that I'm going to resize it. Can you see that the pixels, they don't resize very well? So I like to make all of my base shapes and things when I illustrate, I like to make them vector, because if I come in and do vector and then I decide, you know, I want this much larger, if I resize, it's crispy, baby. It's crispy. Look at that. Look at that nice crisp edge. I can make it larger, and I can even come in and free transform and make it smaller than it was previously. And if I hit done and come in here, it's still nice and crispy. So all of my base shapes are going to be vector shapes, and I will color them in with the pixel brush to get a nice organic look, but that is typically how I approach this sort of thing. Do I make a lot of animations? I have, yeah. My animations are basically what we're going to be doing today. I don't know if I would consider myself like a professional animator, because I'm not animating for clients and things, but I animate my paintings and illustrations very often with small gestures and stuff to kind of breathe life into my projects. And Fresco really lends itself to that, because there's a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of different settings and stuff that can help to animate pretty complex gestures and motions without having to dive into a program like After Effects, for example, which is not really in my wheelhouse. So I'm able to animate characters moving, blinking, hopping up and down, clouds moving back and forth across the sky, birds flying through the air, all that kind of stuff, and make it look really solid without, like I said, having a very serious background in more than just the illustration. So I like doing it. All right, so we've got our shapes, and I am going to come into my vector brushes, actually, and I am just going to start kind of building out the main shape of the rocks now. So I can get a little more organic with these portions, and one thing that I want to point out, because when I first started using the vector brushes, I had a heck of a time like really cleaning up my sketches and stuff, because it is, while it looks like I am doing just fine here, it really is because I'm used to using the vector brushes. I think when you don't use vector brushes and then you come into them from pixel brushes, it can feel a little bit jarring, because the vibe is different, okay? And I'm going to show you why. There are some plus sides to using vector brushes. Number one, you can draw and stuff with the vector layers and all that good stuff. But also, if you're using pixel, if I come over here to my pixel brush and I draw myself a circle, and then I want to paint bucket that shape in, you can see the pixel brushes have a lot of texture and things which you can't fill in properly when you do the fill. But if I come over here, grab my vector brush, and I just make sure that the circuit is closed here, I can come in with my paint bucket tool and I can go ahead and paint bucket it in, and it's perfect. We got our rock done there, which is really great. But another thing is like cleaning up edges, because a lot of these vector brushes, I won't say they have a mind of their own, but they definitely work differently than pixel brushes. Pixel brushes, paint a stroke and everything goes exactly where I put it as I drew it. But there's some of these vector brushes that do stuff like this taper brush. You see how it grows as I'm continuing to move in my stroke. Pixel brushes don't do that. Pixel brushes leave behind exactly what you left behind and don't grow organically as you move across your canvas. And so that was a little awkward for me to get the hang of, and I was left with a lot of situations in which I needed to clean up edges, clean up lines, all that sort of thing. And it doesn't always work out because they're very, very, how do I say? They're very precise in a way, even though they do have a lot of organic growth. And so one of the things, which I think I can show here, if I go ahead and make a line, and then I will grab another color real quick, and I'll make a line here. Let me grab a brighter color. I should be able to come in. What I'm gonna do is press and hold my touch shortcut and drag to the second, and I should be able to, if I can hold, yeah, vector trimming. So what you want to do here is, if you have a line that you've drawn, and maybe what I really wanted to do is make this line line up with the very edge of that one there, and I just didn't quite hit the mark. Instead of coming in and erasing on this layer, if I tap my touch shortcut and then drag and hold to the center ring, I can drag a line through that little piece and it will trim it perfectly away for me, which is really, really great. So it keeps everything nice and clean. So definitely keep that in mind as you start to work with the vector brushes, because it will save your life a few times. It definitely have saved mine. All right, we're about halfway through here, and I definitely want to get a move on to make sure we have time for everything today. So I'm gonna quickly just kind of come through and get a lot of these organic shapes kind of painted in, and make my rocks the way that I want them, because we are going to add some beautiful texture with the pixel brushes to these shapes here in a moment, and I'm very excited about it. I've been looking forward to it since yesterday. Oliver, welcome in. It's good to see you. Umacorn, hello, hello. Barbara, good to see ya. Welcome in. I would love to know if anybody is going to be creating any illustrations, if you've been inspired at all to create any illustrations or prep something for animation, because I would love to see what you guys make. Let me select multiple and see if I can merge. Select it, yes, because I want to definitely be working all on the same area here. I'm gonna go ahead and paint bucket that in. And maybe we'll put another little bird over there on that rock. I think that it could use it as we get further into the illustration, but for now we will just leave it like so. All right, that works for me. The other one works for me. Let's go ahead and add this little portion. I've got my smoothing up pretty high, and so I might turn my smoothing down just so I can be a little more precise. That's another thing with the brushes, is like turning the smoothing on is a really great way to keep everything nice and smooth. But if you're having trouble placing strokes precisely, you might have smoothing turned on a little too high, and it is constraining your your strokes and movements a little too much. So always check that. If you become frustrated with brush settings and things, it could be just that you need some smoothing. And the touch shortcut works the same as pixel brushes with this, where if I would like to erase with my brush that I'm currently using, I can do that if I just double tap my touch shortcut so it's highlighted blue like you can see there, and it works. So, and just double tap to turn it off. I don't need to be as precious as I'm being with that because that is going to be behind them. But let's go ahead and get this little guy in here. I like it. Let's kind of move this up. Oh, this is going to need to be on a different layer. So let's go ahead actually and grab my lasso. I'm going to select this, and I am going to cut selection and paste selection because it is going to have a tiny bit of overlap over here with this back rock. And so I want to make sure that I have them separate, because as we get into the animation process, that could be a major pain if I've illustrated them and then I'm not able to actually isolate these layers and animate in the scene properly. What about a snail instead of a second bird? You are brilliant, Llama Mama. I approve. I approve of the snail idea, and I think that that is really your compensation for me just blatantly removing the Crocs from the sketch yesterday. So hopefully this makes up for that. Let me come back in here to my sketch. Let's grab black and let's give us a little guy, shall we? There you go. There's a little snail. I love him. He's great. Let's give him little like action lines. Like he's like, huh? What? I think he's cute. I think that that is a brilliant idea. So absolutely, we will have a snail. Very sweet. Works for me. I hope this pleases you. All right, so we got our rocks in here. And I think we also need to, let's make another layer real quick. What's on this layer? Is anything on there? I don't think so. Let's go ahead and grab like a lighter gray color here. We are going to change the color of these elements, but let's go ahead and grab a lighter gray and come in here with our, was that a lighter gray? That's not really that lighter gray. Let's kind of bump that up a little bit. Let's make our lily pads. I'm just going to throw a few in here and I might change my mind. Oh yeah, also something that you can do in Fresco, and it is amazing. Something I love. So not only does Fresco constrain the proportions or the assist you with straight lines, but now I can come in, let's say I want to, you know, make a straight line, so I'll drag and hold. We'll drag and hold this one as well. And then I'm going to come around and make this circle, and I'm going to hold it as well. And it makes a nice circle for me, which I love, and I can move it around if I want to, and it just goes ahead and constrains that circle for me. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Fresco team. It's like my favorite thing. And I'll go ahead and just, you know, I do use the eraser sometimes with this. It's just, you know, for other things. I do prefer to have the option to use that vector trimming. Sometimes not so much, but that was one of those instances where that will work. I think also I might actually kind of warp this. Let's kind of skew it just in perspective, because I think it needed to be like kind of raised just a little more. Yeah. Just to give it a little more perspective. There we go. And then I will throw also, I will also draw in this one, just the larger lily pads, and the other ones can be sketchy. Sketchy is fine with me for other ones. Let's go ahead and add that. Yas! Love it. Love it. Let's go ahead and paint bucket that in. Boom, baby. All right, we got a bunch of lily pads in. We'll come in and be sketchy with the other ones, but now it's time to add a little more to our gator. Let's go ahead and grab our guy. And we did resize this a bunch of times, so this might not be, you know. Yeah, we're gonna need to grab the other original one. Let's go ahead and put him right back in there. Let's come in here. Let's duplicate this guy again. Duplicate, because I am gonna use the original illustration. So he will probably be more pixel brush oriented than anything, because I don't want to have to, you know, redraw him. But let's go ahead and transform. We'll flip that horizontal. We'll make him a little smaller. Try not to transform him too much. We'll throw him right in there. I like it. That works for me. And we need to add the rest of his body. So let's, underneath him, let's go ahead and grab, let's use a pixel brush because he is pixel mostly. Let's grab this green color, and I'm just gonna, we'll put his arm, one arm kind of hanging over the edge. Oops. One arm kind of hanging over the edge here. One arm will be right here, and we'll continue his little tum-tum down. Maybe add some more spines. That works. We don't have to do much more than that. We can also, underneath that layer, if we want to, we could grab the lasso tool and kind of select that shape and do a vector shape underneath. If we want, just go like that. And paint bucket it, vector, deselect, and I'm gonna select multiple, boom, boom, and group it, so it's all there. All right, I'm gonna turn this on an even lower opacity, so he's in there. We might actually move him down just a tad bit, because he's looking slightly awkward. Maybe like right there would be really good. That's looking good to me. I think that looks cool. And he's gonna be in the water. All right, so let's paint this. Let's make this beautiful, shall we? Let's make it lovely. We want to select, obviously, a background color. So let's go ahead and select like a, maybe the green color, honestly. Let's go ahead and select the green color. We'll make a new layer for ourselves. And we will, I'll do a pixel layer for the background, because I'm not going to be transforming the background at all. And what I'd like to do is make another layer and kind of brighten a little bit our sky, I suppose you would call it. What's going to essentially like kind of seem like the sky. And I'm also going to bring, can I hover? Yeah, there we go. I'm also going to bring our color palette out here. So let's go ahead and grab, I'm gonna grab a brush. I'm gonna grab my hard round brush, or soft round brush, excuse me. And I'm gonna do that thing that you guys have never seen me do before, and that is use my handy dandy dissolve brush here in Fresco. So I think like grabbing this light green would be really cool, and just kind of coming in with some brightness, kind of giving it a little something like that. Makes it look really cool. Little of that right there, just to give it some atmosphere. I think that already is working wonders, really, to kind of create some nice atmosphere. We can come over here into the yellow region of green and grab like a brighter color just to really brighten this up. So we're still kind of in keeping with the green. We're still going to be using our color palette, but we've kind of spiced it up just a tad. And then I think that if we came in with some blue tones, just to add a little bit of shadow to some of these areas, some blue tones here will work wonders to kind of give our scene a nice element of reality, you know, something like that. So we've got our color in. Now we're gonna start painting our rocks. Now we've got maybe 10 minutes left, and so I don't think that we will come to like the very, very end of this painting, but I definitely am gonna be able to show you what I love to do with clipping masks, so that if you are following along, either working on a similar project with the assets I've provided, or you are gonna be doing a project like this of your own in the future, you can definitely utilize these tools and tips for anything that you'll be working on. So I'm going to create a clipping mask. I've just made a new layer right up top there, clipped it to my rock, and I am going to come in with my pixel brushes, and we're going to use some of those brushes that we loved from yesterday. So I'll go into the halftone pack by Kyle, and I'm going to come into those cross-hatching ones that I found, this Kyle halftone hatch number 1. If you would like to use the same one, you can also come down here and say add brushes and go to discover new brushes. You will find Kyle's halftone pack, and you can use all of the same ones that I am implementing for the project. So we can use that halftone brush, and I am I'm gonna use it once because this is something that I was saying yesterday, is every time, ooh, almost dropped my pen. Every time you use a brush, it adds it to, if you go back to all and go to recent, it adds all the brushes that you want. So I'm just going to snag that there. I put pen to paper, and so now it's added to the recent because I do want to make sure that I take, let's go back to our soft round brush and just kind of fill in our colors here. I'm going to grab this awkward green here, and I'm going to throw some green on there, and I'm going to grab this blue, and we're gonna just add a little bit of shading blue wise, just give it a little bit of something something on the edge of these rocks. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm still clipping, I'm just adding a little bit of substance to it, just working on these ones in the back here since they're on a different layer from the other. And then I'm gonna snag this dark blue. Let's grab our dark blue and add a little bit of something with the dark blue too. Just, you know, give it some substance. And I'm just doing little strokes up and down. And if you see, if you apply shading at various values and colors, just like that, that's 3 colors. I almost said three colors. That's 3 colors already. I think that we can all agree it is starting to really be pulled into a 3D space here, right? Kind of building up this vibe, that these rocks are now a part of a scene instead of just being like these strange little blobs. And I've got my light out here with the light color, and I've got like the shadows down here in this area. So having the darker values on this side of our rocks is the way to go. So now I've got like kind of basic vibes in here. We'll go ahead and make another clipping mask because we're going to add some texture. And I really want to call attention to one thing, and that is when I use clipping masks in Fresco, I use them the same as when I use them in Photoshop. Especially when I'm like really in the groove and I really am like into what I'm doing, I don't like to stop and change the settings of various layers. So if I make an empty clipping mask layer and leave it on the top of all the clipping masks, then if I, select the one just under that, that's the one I just finished working on, and hit new layer, the new layer button, because there's already a clipping mask above, it will automatically make my layer a clipping mask so that I can make as many new clipping masks in here without having to pause and go set that layer to clipping mask over and over again, and just like stay focused on my work. It's not absolutely necessary, but it works for me. So if you folks would like to try that in your workflow, go for it. But let's come in and use this hatching thing now. So I want to kind of add, yeah, look at that. Oh, that works so good because I use that dark blue in there, right? And so now as I apply this hatching, it starts to really, really kind of blend in super nicely. So I can come in with that, that texture and start to build those shapes, and it really blends and flows super nicely. I love it. I love it. Just a little bit there. And then what you can do too is you can come in and maybe I want to cut away a little bit of this. So I will use my lasso tool to like kind of select an area that I want to remove and then hit that eraser like I was showing before. Maybe we don't want to go that far with that selection. Let's go ahead and cut it like so. And we'll hit erase, and it just erases a nice clean patch right out of there, which I think works so good. We could even do this over here. Let's go ahead and add the hatching too far and see what it looks like when we want to clean it up. So we'll come in with our lasso and erase. And then we have like just that nice, smooth kind of, you know, vibe there. We can even select, I kind of want to remove a portion of it here, just so that it's got that bare area. Wade! Jack! I love it when everybody comes into the chat and they just, like, in caps, greet their best friends. It makes me very happy. Let me make sure that I am catching everybody's questions, because we do have about 5 minutes left. I like that color palette with the gray of the rocks. I'm kind of trying to mimic that, that dark gray value just with the blue, you know, but we can always come back because all of the different layers of color and things are on clipping masks. So technically, if I wanted to change this, if I wanted to make this a different color, I could come over on this clipping mask, open my settings, lock transparency, grab a more solid color brush, and then maybe we want to try it as like a red. Maybe we want like a red color, and I could come in and on that lock transparency just change the color of all that. And locking transparency on clipping masks is a great technique to employ, because you can't clip something to a clipping mask. It's already a clipping mask. If you try to do that, it'll just continue to clip to whatever that mask is clipped to. But you can use lock transparency so that you can alter only what is on a clipping mask layer, which is really, really useful. And the last thing that I want to do when it comes to kind of really getting some of the detail in on here is grab, I guess we could use the halftone brush again, though I might choose something different in the future, is grab that and then snag another green color, and then kind of come in and start to add a little tiny bit of light, like mossy light onto the top peak of all of these little rocks. So you can kind of see how, you know, our initial art direction and all of these brushes and our sketches have really guided us to create a pretty interesting, and if I do say so myself, cohesive kind of vibe for everything that we're doing here. And I love it. I think it looks really great. And I think that you guys can see how I'm gonna, you know, this is gonna be completely finished and ready for tomorrow. Because we have to animate all this. So I'll get a lot of the animation done. I will also come in, let's leave some notes. I'm gonna leave some notes for myself, because this is what I love to do before I close a project. If I'm not gonna be working on it for the day, or I'm taking a break, and I remember that I wanna add certain things, I will come in with, in this case, I'll use a color that we have in the project, but sometimes I'll use like a bright red, and I will just come in on a new layer and I will add a bunch of gesture lines and things to remind myself, hey, you know, you wanted to do this thing here, so don't forget to do it. And I will just, you know, come around, and I definitely want to add these little water lines and stuff and really make all of this fit in and feel like water, all that, kind of throw some ripples around all of these little elements. So that's what I will do, and tomorrow we will be animating this baby, and I am super pumped. So let's see, what else can we do before we go, because we've got a couple of minutes. What do you say we add Stan and the snail? Just gonna be sketchy because we don't have a lot of time to prep the entire thing, but I think that we should not close our stream today without Stan being in the picture. I think that would be wrong. So there's Stan, and let's get our little snail. We got a little snail there, so we remember that we got to put those guys in there. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all we have time for. But I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna elaborate more on these vibes that we've got going on. And I'm really excited for tomorrow. I cannot wait to dive into animation with you folks. And I will also be providing all of the finished files for this illustration in the starter files tomorrow. So if you folks would like to jump into the animation and animate the piece differently and post it to social media so I can see what you did with it, I think that would be so fun. But that's all the time I have for you folks today. I'll see you guys tomorrow, bright and early, for episode 3. So until then, adios, everybody.